Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be taking a quick look at tab names from data, which is an enhancement added to Decisions version 9.8. Now in previous versions of Decisions, the tab names were static. We now can populate those dynamically by allowing a data variable to represent them. So I have a couple different iterations and builds to show you with the tabs from data name, and we're going to start here at a foundational kind of base level. You'll notice that on this form, I have no inputs available at the moment. When I go into the form, it has a single tab container. That can be searched for in the toolbox. This will also work for a side menu container, but for now we're just going to show it as a tab container. When I click on the tab container, I'm given options in the properties panel to adjust these tabs. Clicking the pencil will allow me to change the tab name quite easily. But it will also allow me to get header from data name, and that is new again with Decisions version 9.8. So now when I place this and I say input, I'll say input variable. What I want you to see here at this moment is that if I save this and I come out, I'm now given an input for that tab container header. That tab container header input variable is also accessible in an active form flow. In this active form flow, you will be able to use set control value or a create data step. In a few moments, I'm going to show you both of those options, but set control value, and you'll notice that you'll have accessibility to change the tab name. That can be located under form data. There it is, input variable, and I'm given the option to set it as tab name. Now that we've looked at the tab as data name from a foundational level, let's start talking about some potential use cases. So you may find yourself where you want a form where both the tab name and the contents change synchronously. So you have text logo, logo, text logo. This is going to be framed up the same way we kind of hinted at in the previous section with an active form flow. So once again, in review, when you give it a data name, it'll show up as an input. We just have it mapped here as a constant. But more strength resides in these active form flows. Now, admittedly, this probably is not the most performant way to do this task. I did want to kind of break it into 3 steps so you see how I built it. In the next section, I have it slightly more performant using a create data step. But essentially, in the active form flow, we are given access to form data, the tab container as the form control, and then we can select the tab name as a constant. And we can do the exact same thing for the form data image. We also have a show control here so that that button doesn't show up until it's been flipped for the first time. And all of this is managed by one of the 2 event buttons. Return to original, same kind of process. We're setting the control value. Once again, for the tab name, this time back to logo as a constant, and the image the same way. Now let's move on to the second stage where we're going to talk about getting some information dynamically before the form. So we talked about tabs and data names from a foundational level. We took a look at a quick example, and I have a slightly larger one here for you. Now in this use case, as I go through and select accounts that are populated using a fetch entities, it will change the name of an additional tab that can then be clicked, and the data will populate. And again, I'm getting all this information from the account decisions framework, and we are populating it in the form. So let's take a look at how it's built. Starting right away, I have a fetch entities to fetch from the account, and again, that is a decisions framework. And I did put in a fetch criteria where the account contains the word decisions, so you don't see a million emails loading. Once I have that being used to populate a data grid. On this data grid, under grid mode, I have single select selected as an option so that they can be selected, and then that can be seen in an active form flow. This is called selected account down here for output data name. And you'll notice that as I go through, anytime the selection is changed on that advanced data grid, I have a create data step. And again, this is slightly more performant than our last option because this is just a single step. And on here, I created 4 named variables, input data from the form data to populate those variables, and then on the output used change value to change the value of the labels on the second section of the tab container. So again, I'm taking in form data and I'm saying, hey, the selected account, because that's how that advanced data grid is going to output data. So again, this advanced data grid, I only have a single field here, email address. I could add more, but I kind of liked the simplistic look there. So kind of once again, I have a form. I'm taking in a fetch entities to populate a data grid. That data grid is set to single select grid mode. Once I have that, I can then use that single selection in an active form flow to populate an account tab. And once again, I have these labels set up for text from data name, just like the tab container headers. So it works in a similar way as it has kind of always worked here in decisions, but now just this feature has been enhanced and moved over onto these header tab names. So kind of let's look at it from the debugging point of view. So again, when I debug, my fetch entities fetches all of this account information, but again, only things that have decisions.com. That will then go into my form, and that's what populates this advanced data grid. On the advanced data grid, it has a report that only had one field with single select on, so that when I single select, it will run this create data step. And the create data step takes the information from that giant structure and uses change value to change the value of the labels here in this section. When I'm done, it'll take us all the way out, red end step. So in review, as you go through and you are using tab containers, you can use get header from data name to dynamically set those header names in Decisions version 9.8. Thank you.